Bapanata everyone, and welcome back to my Silksong discussion series. This is part 4, so if you haven't seen part 1 to 3 yet, I will give you the opportunity to do so right now. Thanks for all the nice feedback on the last videos, it really means a lot to me. Today we are going to take a look at all the 15 tools we have seen so far, 7 of which we have actually got gameplay footage of. And at the very end of this video, I will show you the most interesting tool and also a bench I have missed all this time, which is a neat little thing, since I think many of you might have also never seen this screen of Silksong before. But before we jump right into it, we have to clarify, what are tools? The new tool system will basically take the place of the charm system in Hollow Knight. If you are not familiar with the charm system, you need to know 2 things about it. 1, they are active or passive buffs, which also grant new ways of attacking and change the gameplay, and 2, Wayward Compass is the most overpowered charm ever. You could collect charms everywhere in the world and could equip a certain amount of them at once, depending on their cost and your available charm notches. In Silksong, this will be different, or as Team Cherry put it, craft powerful tools, master an ever-expanding arsenal of weapons, traps and mechanisms to confound your enemies and explore new heights. So right off the bat we can see that we will craft tools by finding the needed materials. However, I do not think that this is everything. It would be dull if all the 30 or 40 tools, or how many will end up in the game, would be available from the start and you just would have to look for the components. I rather think it will go one of 2 ways. Number 1, we will unlock a tool if we have at least one of each material needed for crafting it. Like for example, say the knight were to find a pale ore and a rancid egg and was like, oh, I got an idea, I could craft this into a fucking abomination. Number 2, however, is that we find, buy or are rewarded recipes. So finding those recipes would feel a bit like finding charms in Hollow Knight, just with some extra steps. Because we would only have the recipe and we would still need to craft it. I like number 2 a bit more, though it feels a bit less independent, and I think that recipes would just be great quest rewards. However, I have no issue with the other variant as well. Now let's dive even deeper into this new system. This screen right here is what a large portion of this video will be about. But before we focus on the right side of the screen, let's take a look at the left side. We can see that we have a so-called crest equipped, which then allows us to equip different tools. In this case, a red, yellow and blue one. These colors correspond with the categories we see on the right side of the screen. If we take a closer look, we can not only see that the crest is called Wanderer's Crest, but also that there will be an option to change crests. The icon displayed shows a symbol that is all too familiar, the Weaver symbol, which is all over Falun, and which is the tribe which has a close connection to Hornet herself. More on lore speculation in this video right here. So now, what will different crests do? I think they will change the amount and kind of type of tools we will be allowed to carry. For example, the Weaver crest might allow us to equip 2 blue tools and a yellow one, while the Wanderer's Crest will be more of an all-around type, allowing us to equip 1 yellow, 1 red and 1 blue one. Now these crests could also be upgradable, or have some kind of fixed upgrade path, but we do not know yet if this will be the case. Now let's finally jump into each of those tools, starting with the ones we have actually seen gameplay of. Now there are 3 categories we have seen so far. Red, blue and yellow. I think red tools are active tools, blue ones are passive effects, and yellow ones are a bit more special, similar to things like the absolutely overpowered Wayward Compass in Hollow Knight. This is kinda backed by the fact that all 7 tools we have seen in action are from the red category, which makes sense since passive effects are a lot harder to actively notice. Number 1 and 2 are these tools. They're kinda self-explanatory. You shoot these kunai and they deal damage. The single one probably deals around as much damage as the 3 separate ones together, as to make the single kunai not unnecessary after acquiring the spreadshot version. The spike thing right here is interesting. It is used in the trailer as an object Hornet reaches new heights with, but as most of us know, Hornet actually used this in her boss fight, so it is both usable in fights and for platforming. I will not go into speculation if Silksong is a prequel or sequel to Hollow Knight, because Hornet learns how to make this tool in Silksong and already uses it in Hollow Knight, so Silksong has to be a prequel, right? But in the end they could just say, bam, Hornet got amnesia after leaving Hollow Nest, so she had to relearn all her moves again, so it could still just be a sequel. But I don't know. The next one is even more interesting. They are these mechanical bugs which seem to work a lot like the glowing womb or the Weaver Song charm from Hollow Knight. We don't see them attack, but it is likely that they either attack when we attack or just attack enemies on sight. What is interesting about those guys is that they have almost no resemblance to anything we have seen so far in the Hollow Knight universe, but given their mechanical nature, a link to Sharp and Chin would be the biggest guess. However, the striking color palette used might indicate that this is not the case. Up next we got the Pimp Pillow. It's basically a pumpkin which is also a bomb. The striking red is again interesting, but apart from that, there's nothing special to this tool. The last two we have seen so far are quite self-explanatory. The first one is Revenge for the Path of Pain, so basically just a sword that travels at a set distance. And the second and last one for this section is the Lifeblood Syringe, which first of all proves that lifeblood is a thing in Silksong, and second of all proves that Hornet vaccinates herself, which I approve. How this syringe will work is quite easy. It will just grant us lifeblood masks again, just like the cocoons from Hollow Knight did. Now let's get into the last 8 tools and then also get into the somewhat secret I teased earlier. Up first we have this dangerous nipple. This is most likely going to be a bunch of spikes we throw onto the ground for enemies to walk over. Due to it being on the ground, it will be different enough to set itself apart from the spike tool. The last red tool are the mandibles. For those, your guess is as good as mine. They could be used as some kind of bite attack, which would be weird given Hornet has no mouth. And the second thing I can think of is that it works like a boomerang of sorts. Now, it will literally get even juicier as we go into the weird passive effects. The one on the left is quite easy for me to interpret. It clearly shows a mossberry, so it maybe will be a buff connected to those in some way. I think it might increase the effect the potions created by the druid have by a certain percentage. The next one is also interesting as it again shows the Weaver symbol. This one could buff moves which use Weaver powers, aka powers that use silk. It could either increase the damage dealt or decrease the cost they take to be cast. The last blue one we see is this ribcage of sorts. I can see this being a simple defense buff or working similar to Baldur's Shell, as in it will negate any damage dealt until a certain threshold is reached, and the tool loses its effect until you sit on the bench again. Now let's get into my favorite 3. Now you might ask, Stissel, you can't even see the icons. How will you interpret them? To that I say, I know the ancient magic of picture editing. So this is what I came up with. However, after asking mossbag about what I supposedly found out by color correcting the image, he actually gave me this far superior version of this image, so thank you mossbag. The actual link where I got this from is of course in the description. The left one looks like a fossil to me. I can make out what could be a head but not much else. Talking about how it will be used is kind of meaningless, but the design alone is really interesting to me, and I think it hints at this tool being found in the Forest of Bones or in Bone Bottom, or at least somewhere near the bottom of the kingdom, since of course a fossil and bones kinda go hand in hand, I think. The one on the right clearly shows the mask of a bug we have yet to meet. So I guess this is like Celubra's Blessing, a tool which we will get after getting into contact with a certain NPC we haven't seen yet. So I also think the effect this tool will have depends on the NPC and what the NPC's powers are. Now to the one in the middle. This is the most interesting as it is really hidden behind the arrow, but if we edit the picture a little bit we can see this. Now where have we seen this? This tool design bears an incredible resemblance to the moth statues we see in Hollow Knight. This could hint at the moth tribe having some kind of influence in Falum, or having at least left marks, and it also could hint at the moth tribe originating from Falum. The lore possibilities would be endless, and I'm excited to see if this turns out to be true. However, this tool has a hole in its belly which really doesn't align with the moth statue, so the tool could also just be a donut. Now for the last little detail, look at this picture. Neither even addressed the elephant in the room. Hornet is sitting on a bench we haven't seen so far. We can see pots, hinting at this being in a civilized area, possibly the moss grotto, as it is also near leaves. On the left we see moss, on the right we see bones. This could hint at this being a bench in the far east of Moss Grotto, near the Forest of Bones. It could also possibly be in the far edge of Bone Bottom, the starting town of Silksong. I went over a year without noticing this little thing. I actually thought I have something new here, but of course the Hollow Knight community was faster than I was and actually discovered this way earlier than I did. And yeah, thanks for mossbag for pointing that out. The source is linked into the description. I would really appreciate it if you all checked it out. This is it for this video. The thing is, I always want to have something to talk about which most of you haven't seen so far, haven't considered so far. Some kind of lore speculation or theory which is kind of new, or at least not really discussed a lot. And for the possible remaining topics of Silksong, I don't know if I can actually add something of value to these topics, because I don't want to talk about the NPCs and just be like, oh, he could be here, or just talk about cities and be like, oh, what about the snail village? Is it going to appear? And this is the most novel fact in the video. I wouldn't like that. For further information on my upload schedule in the next coming weeks and months, please check out the pinned comment below. And yeah, I'm going to see you hopefully soon. Farewell, my fellow higher beings.